Let me tell you, if you'd asked me 3 years ago what could turn a peaceful suburban community into the set of a reality show about vegetables and arson, I'd have laughed and said you'd been watching too much TV. But at exactly 2:43 p.m. on a Thursday, I watched a 20-foot pillar of smoke rise behind my house in Cattail Preserve, and right then, any chance of normalcy went up in flames, along with 70% of my backyard corn crop. And the best part, the woman who'd spent months trying to get rid of my illegal corn, my own HOA president, set the whole thing off herself on camera in broad daylight, then tried to tell everyone she was preventing a fire. Yeah, that happened. It started small, as these things always do. I moved to Cattail Preserve for peace and quiet, a little space to grow corn and maybe make friends, not enemies. Name's Derek Lang, 48 software architect, the kind of guy who likes his weekends slow, his grass green, and his hobbies harmless. I'd checked the HOA rules and my backyard garden was perfectly legal. But Marcia, the self-declared queen of the HOA, saw things differently. She'd been president since 2017, wore the title around her neck like a mayor's chain, and ran the place like a low-budget dictator with a side hustle in compliance mugs. Picture mugs that say "World's Best Rule Enforcer" or "Keep Calm and Measure Grass." I wish I was joking. The whole corn crisis began when I started growing a few rows out back, a tiny experiment that got a little out of hand maybe, but nothing crazy. Marcia started showing up with her clipboard, taking photos, measuring stalk height like she was prepping for the Olympics and announcing violations like it was her job. Her opening volley, "Mr. Lang, are you aware you're operating a commercial agricultural enterprise?" I offered her an ear of corn. She threatened to call a board meeting. Next thing I know, she's emailing the neighborhood with aerial images of my yard red circles, PowerPoint slides about the slippery slope from sweet corn to commercial farming. Most people thought it was a joke. Bob Martinez next door brought me a beer and asked if I was secretly running a black market popcorn cartel. But Marcia doubled down. She issued a citation for excessive maize cultivation. I had to read it 3 times. Who uses maize unless they're narrating a documentary? When I politely pointed out her mistake, highlighting the actual HOA rules, vegetable gardens allowed up to 40% of the yard, she doubled down. Suddenly there were new rules, crop height limits, daily compliance walks, and I kid you not, a Facebook group called Cattail Preserve Compliance Watch, where she posted daily updates about my corn. The posts got weirder every week. Day 12. The corn continues to grow. Day 24. Situation escalating. By day 40, the only thing escalating was the number of neighbors muting her group. The real circus began when I caught Marcia sneaking into my yard at 2 a.m., scattering mothballs and claiming she was protecting the community from possums. There I was, barefoot in my boxers, arguing about nocturnal marsupials and agricultural safety while she's waving a bag of mothballs like they're holy relics. "It's a safety issue," she says. "If possums establish themselves in your agricultural operation, they'll spread to other yards." I started a journal called the Corn Chronicles just to keep track of the insanity. Her angle kept shifting. First, the corn was ugly. Then it was dangerous. Then my personal favorite, spontaneous combustion. She printed off articles about crop fires, invited a retired firefighter to the HOA meeting, and practically begged him to declare my backyard a ticking time bomb. He ended his speech by saying, "I've never seen a corn fire in 40 years. Didn't matter. Marcia started patrolling the neighborhood on fire watch, complete with a tape measure clipboard and a fire extinguisher, as if she was waiting for my corn to burst into flames and launch itself at her house. The other neighbors weren't amused. Mrs. Chen brought Marcia an umbrella and a chair for her 4-hour fire watch, but only because she was scaring the ice cream truck away. And then came the day of the fire. I was at the hardware store buying tomato steaks, completely unaware that my garden was about to become the main event in a suburban melodrama. According to Jenny from across the street, Marcia showed up with her usual kit and a citronella torch, ostensibly for mosquitoes, but it was 2 in the afternoon and there wasn't a bug in sight. She paced, muttered, lit the torch, and thanks to a gust of wind set a pile of dead leaves ablaze right up against my fence. Within seconds, the fire jumped to my corn and the infamous smoke column was born. Marcia panicked, ran for her hose which barely reached the fence, and started screaming about preventing fires while spraying a pitiful drizzle on the roaring flames. Tom Richards across the street had the good sense to call 911 while everyone else whipped out their phones documenting what would become Exhibit A in the Great Corn Fire Saga. The firefighters arrived fast, put out the blaze, and after surveying the scene, found Marcia dripping wet and covered in soot, still clutching her torch. She launched into her speech about proactive risk mitigation. The captain, Captain Rodriguez, all business, watched Tom's ring camera footage, then called over the fire marshal, a woman whose raised eyebrow could have cut glass. When she saw Marcia's Facebook post from that morning, "Let's make this corn pop," and the wink emoji, the air went cold. "Ma'am, you're going to need to come with us to answer some questions," the marshal said. The word arson hung in the air like the smoke from my garden. It didn't take long for everything to unravel. Turns out Marcia had been using HOA funds to pay for private investigators, soil testing drones, and yes, bulk citronella torches, all in the name of community safety. The HOA board for once acted fast. Gary, the treasurer, finally free of Marcia's shadow, called an emergency meeting. The vote to remove her was unanimous. Even her own compliance coffee crew threw her under the bus. Detective Morrison from the sheriff's office stood up and announced Marcia was under criminal investigation. That room packed with neighbors who'd been cited for everything from dandelions to aggressively whimsical garden gnomes erupted in applause. The criminal charges came fast: arson, criminal mischief, trespassing, reckless endangerment. Her lawyer looked ready to retire on the spot. Marcia tried to defend herself by launching a blog, The Truth About Cattail Preserve, where she accused everyone from the fire marshal to my dog of conspiring against her. She testified at her own trial, ranted about corn-based mind control, and submitted mothball distribution records as evidence of community spirit. The jury didn't even need an hour, guilty on all counts. The sentencing was a full house: neighbors, reporters, even the garden store owner. The judge, deadpan, called Marcia's actions a stunning display of privilege run amok. 2 years in prison for arson, 1,000 hours of community service, mostly with the fire department, mandatory counseling, $25,000 in fines, and a lifetime ban from any HOA board, restitution, probation, you name it. As they led her away, she screamed, "I am the HOA president," like she expected the walls to bow in deference. Nobody flinched. Afterward, life in Cattail Preserve changed overnight. People started gardening again, big, wild, beautiful. Gary, now president, scrapped every draconian rule Marcia had ever written. The infamous crop height restriction gone. Compliance committee disbanded. Someone planted a 6-foot sunflower in open rebellion. The great corn revival of Cattail Preserve was born with matching t-shirts and a communal garden. Even the local food bank benefited from the bumper crop. As for Marcia, she tried running the prison like an HOA for about a week before the other inmates shut her down. Her blog posts grew more and more bizarre, her lawsuits fizzled, and her reputation as the corn arsonist became local legend. She'll be in textbooks, I guess, a case study in power, gone haywire. Meanwhile, my corn grew back better than ever thanks to the nutrients in the ash, if you can believe it. So here's my question to you. Where do we draw the line between neighborly concern and outright lunacy? When does someone's need for control become a danger to everyone else? Drop a comment. Tell me your HOA war stories, or just let me know if you've ever seen a vegetable cause this much trouble. And remember, in Cattail Preserve, we don't burn our gardens, we celebrate them 1 ear of corn at a time.